It's time now for Countywide, a special presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. Join Paul David and Kyle Benedict as they talk with our community's leaders, newsmakers, and people in the know. You'll hear about the hot topics that affect all our lives in Yavapai County. And now here's today's Countywide.
To you.
Welcome to Countywide. I'm Kyle Benedict. Today we're sitting down with Chino Valley Public Information Officer Rob Zazueta, and we're going to be talking about some of the common emergency situations that we might see. We're going to talk a little bit about the EMS system and just kind of get a better understanding of all that type of stuff. So thank you for making a trip over here, Rob.
Oh, my pleasure.
Again, Chino Valley PIO Officer. Talk to you on the phone quite a bit, so people are probably used to hearing you on the radio, but nice to meet you in person.
Yes.
So tell us a little about yourself, your background in the fire service.
Sure. I've worked for Chino Valley Fire District. I've been employed there for approximately 12 years now. I'm a firefighter paramedic, and I also work as the public information officer, so
okay.
I get a good opportunity to develop good relationships with the media and help educate the public and what is happening with the district and what kind of situations come up to keep them safe.
Okay. How important is that public education? I mean, we'll get into it a little bit more in the show and talk, that's kind of why you're here, to help educate all of us. Sure. But how important is that? I mean, is that a pretty important aspect of your job?
I'd say it's become very vital to not only the community, but also for us as well. It's really the first source of information that the public can read and see and get their hands on so that they can keep themselves safe. And I think the more that we can educate people on how to keep themselves safe, not only when we arrive, things seem to be run a little bit easier because the public has a good understanding as to what we are there for.
Okay. So to kind of just start off, I guess if you have, if I have any injury or a health problem, first thing to do, call 911. And then that kind of initiates the whole emergency system.
Yes.
Can you explain how that system works from kind of step to step?
Sure. Well, as most people know, majority of our call volume is from medical in nature. So about 80 to 85% of our call volume each year is based on medical emergencies. So that could be anything from a cut to the hand, a traffic accident, or some type of a medical injury or problem that the patient's having, like COPD or a cardiac issue, respiratory, diabetes. Those are some of the most common emergencies that we respond to. So when something like that occurs, they call 911. The dispatcher is trained to ask specific questions so they can provide us with the most detailed information, so when we arrive on scene, we know how to handle it. It still requires us to be open and broad in our perspective as to what it is that's occurring, but it really helps when the dispatcher asks specific questions about the patient, what kind of condition they're in, if they're conscious, what their respiratory rate is like, if they're really having trouble, gives us an idea as to what we're going to see when we arrive on scene. They can help with different situations. If someone's in cardiac arrest, they can actually talk somebody through CPR, talk somebody through different situations like that, so that they get a jump on the care for that patient.
Well, yeah, I mean, you say that, and I'm thinking about some of the press releases we see come through here, or if there's recently a lot of hikers getting stranded or needing to be rescued, and they're in other groups, and you hear about these dispatchers are staying on the phone with their hiking partner or whoever and providing this medical attention. How new is that? I mean, what exactly are they trained in?
It's definitely been progressive throughout the years. They found out that the dispatchers are actually the first source for those patients. So when you can provide that kind of care on the phone, when someone is calling saying that, my dad has fallen, we're hiking, and he's not talking to me, or he's having a really hard time breathing, or he has a broken leg and he's bleeding, or something like that, the dispatchers can kind of start to develop some type of care for that patient. And as they continue to talk that person through that's calling, they can develop more information to give to us as we respond to the scene. So,
okay, and then I imagine the more information you guys get, the better prepared you are before you even get on scene.
Right, especially in a situation where we have to hike out to a patient, we might know what kind of equipment we need to bring. If the patient's going to be able to walk out with us, or if we're going to need to bring a Stokes basket and maybe some rope gear, what we're going to need to get that patient out. So,
when you talk about, you say 80% of your calls are medical. What are some of the more common calls that you see?
I'd say that with the level of care that the hospitals continue to progress with, any kind of cardiac situation when people have quadruple bypass surgeries, things like that, they stick around wherever it is that they've been having the care that they're getting at the hospital. So, we have a lot of retirees that live within our Quad City area, and I'm sure here in the Verde Valley as well, that they come here for a purpose, not only the beautiful climate and environment that we live in, but also the medical care that they can receive. So we get a lot of diabetic calls, a lot of respiratory problems like COPD, CHF, stuff like that, that these patients have these ailments that are medical in nature, and we get to know them very well because they end up calling on our care quite often, and it gives us a great opportunity to be able to fit into their medical providing care. So it's
Now, when you talk about public education, and again here we'll dive into some of the things that just the public can do to kind of help with some of these more minor injuries. Obviously, you have these major things. You need more training or education, but just in terms of education to the public, from your aspect of it, what are some of the things that you guys do to help educate the public, and what are some of those topics?
Well, one of the biggest recommendations we have is always I think everybody should be CPR and first aid certified. It doesn't matter your age, it doesn't matter if you live alone or anything. Everyone should have some type of level of care so that they feel comfortable in a situation like that. And the more you're trained, the more comfortable you are. The more the knowledge you have, the more apt you are to actually responding to a situation. You could be walking through a grocery store and have someone collapse in front of you. If you have no idea what is happening, you may shy away from providing any kind of care. But if you have some kind of training, you might want to jump in there and help that patient or help that person, whatever the situation is. Getting CPR and first aid certified is something we can do through the fire stations. You can call our administration office and get signed up on a list, and we'll provide a class for you. That number is 928-636-2442. And anytime you call for something like that, the firefighters are the ones that teach the courses, so you get another opportunity, another perspective from someone who's actually responding to these calls that can educate you on what you can do to keep yourself safe and to keep the people that you live with safe. So.
Okay, great. Well, we're going to take our first break. When we come back, we will talk about some of those more common injuries that you and I might find ourselves facing. So Rob Zazueta, PIO for Chino Valley Fire District. This is Countywide. We'll be back in a few minutes.
A redhead. Staring contest. You still got it. I know.
Come alive with the forest.
The dad was cute.
You were looking right at us. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a forest near you.
Orkin has pest control down to a science.
When your business chooses Orkin's Precision Protection Program, you get a tailored pest control program for your specific industry and environment.
Your business can benefit from over a century of experience, training, and scientific knowledge that define the Orkin man.
Maximum protection, minimum exposure, backed by one of the industry's most comprehensive guarantees.
Choose your locally owned and operated Northern Arizona Orkin and get more than an exterminator. Get an expert.
Traditional light bulbs actually generate 9 times more heat than light. Switch to Energy Star light bulbs, and you'll realize just how much cash you are really burning through. Saving energy saves you money. Learn more at EnergySavers.gov.
Welcome back to Countywide. I'm Kyle Benedict, sitting down with Rob Zazueta, the Public Information Officer for the Chino Valley Fire District. We talked about the emergency medical system a little bit before, from when you call 911 all the way through to when these guys get on scene. Recently, you guys had a story a few months ago, I want to say maybe the beginning of summer, where you guys had a man who choked to death. Tell me a little about that story and kind of just what happened there.
Well, it was a very unfortunate situation. An individual was on a lunch break at work. They worked in a factory-type setting, and on a lunch break, apparently he had walked away from everyone else while he was finishing up his lunch, and he ended up choking. And he was discovered by himself, and unfortunately that individual passed away, and there was nothing that could be done to save him. You know, it's just one of those things that kind of brings a reminder to everyone else. The what ifs. You know, what if he hadn't walked away? What if there would have been somebody with him, and what could they have done? You know, in a situation like that, these are the reasons why we promote CPR and first aid. And although that situation may not have been affected because of the circumstances, it just brings you to start thinking about what are you capable of as an individual in a situation like that, and how could you have provided some type of care? So we talked about the dispatchers and how they can start to initiate that, but the more that you educate yourself and the more that you get yourself trained on those types of situations. I know when I became a father, even though I'm a paramedic, it still made me nervous that something was going to happen. We don't run on a lot of pediatric care patients. We don't run on that a lot. So when you're not surrounded by it, if it's not something you're used to and comfortable with, it makes you a little bit nervous and hesitant as to how you're going to respond to it. So that's why we tell people, you know, learn these things, learn CPR, learn first aid, you know, learn how to provide any kind of care. Nowadays, the American Heart Association has actually really made CPR very simple. They promote what's called hands-only CPR, which all you're doing is compressions on a patient that is in cardiac arrest. And there's medical reasons for that, but the biggest thing is that some type of care is better than no care at all. So if you're hesitant to do mouth-to-mouth ventilations, which most people are nowadays, and it's completely understandable, they have found that a patient who has gone into sudden cardiac arrest has enough oxygenated blood in their system already. So by you providing those compressions, you're actually providing that oxygenated blood through the organs. So, you know, they say, you know, 5 minutes is kind of the deadline for people that don't have oxygenated blood in their system. That's when their organs start to shut down and things like that. So if you're providing that hands-only CPR, which is, you know, very basic and very simple, it really does provide the level of care that's needed for us as first responders to show up and then provide advanced level of care.
So if you're trained in CPR and you see someone who needs it down there on the ground, and they're is the kind of idea with just going with the chest compressions, is the idea to kind of, you know, I'm trained in CPR, but I don't know this guy. I don't know, you know, what he has. He has stuff coming out of his mouth. I mean, I don't want to help them because I can't do that mouth-to-mouth deal. So is that kind of the idea, to help people just respond? Well,
it was one of them. They also just found that, you know, patients that weren't receiving anything had less chance of survival than people that were receiving some type of compression. So
what about if I'm at a restaurant, and like this story that we just talked about, someone starts choking and it looks like they're severely choking. When it comes to, I mean, one thing that I know I would probably be worried about as just a average citizen having a meal, enjoying with your family, see someone choking. One thing I would be concerned about is, okay, what if I go to help this guy and God forbid something happens, he ends up dying, or, you know, I would be afraid of making the situation worse.
Sure.
Are there any protections for citizens like that?
Well, there is. You know, the Good Samaritan law is out there, and what that is in place for is for individuals that are, you know, the lay responder, that someone that doesn't really have any proper training or anything. If they show up and they're trying to provide a betterment to that situation, that Good Samaritan law is there to protect them.
Okay.
You know, as long as they weren't being neglectful or trying to cause further harm, it's something that does protect them. So I completely understand. You know, nowadays You never know what kind of liability or legality you're going to get yourself into. But if you're responding to a situation like that and you're attempting to make it better and attempting to help, as long as you're not going outside of anything that you've ever been trained in, then you're going to be covered in that Good Samaritan law. So.
Okay. Now, changing to some of the other common things that we might see. Say you're at home and you're chopping up vegetables or something. You slice your finger.
Okay.
Minor or bad or however. What would be the thing you call 911 while we're waiting for you to get there? What's something that we could do to kind of help the situation and keep it from getting worse?
Sure. Some of the things that you'll learn in a basic first aid class is providing direct pressure on any kind of wounds. We of course always promote a gloved hand. That's just for your own safety and everything. But if it's your own finger, I don't think you need to worry about that. So direct pressure, something like that would actually start to control that bleeding, and that's your main goal, is to control the bleeding and stop it so that it doesn't become something worse and start to shut down systems in your body. But direct pressure, elevation above the heart, so if you cut yourself on the finger, direct pressure and holding it up is something that can help control that bleeding. We always promote keeping it clean. If you're doing something in the kitchen, you don't know, you don't want to get anything in there, so using some cool water, a clean rag. You don't want to use the rag you've been using to clean up after that you cut the chicken, So you want to make sure that you keep it clean and keep that direct pressure on there until we arrive to give you some further, because we have a lot of other different things that we can utilize for that. So
okay, and I'm sure, that's something that you would want to call 911 for, right?
What we've always said is, when in doubt, call 911.
Okay.
If it's something that you don't know if you're going to be able to handle, call 911. That's what we're there for. We're there to provide a service to the community, and we take a lot of pride in that. And so a lot of people, when we arrive on a scene, and it could be something very serious, they say, I didn't want to bother you guys.
Yeah.
That's what we're there for. We're there to provide a service to the community and to the public. So, it's very, I understand their take on it, but it's humbling, and I just want people to understand that we're there for them. So if it's a situation like that, and we get calls for all types of public assist, when someone trips and falls, they may not be hurt, but they're having a hard time getting up, and we can come in and help them get up and get to a chair, get back to bed, things like that. So
when it comes to like respiratory problems, here kind of we have a lot of people have allergies. What are some of the red flags to, I'm by myself at home, or maybe my wife or girlfriend or kid has starts showing signs of difficulty breathing or something? What are some of those red flags that there is a really big problem?
Right. Well, a lot of times when people have those type of ailments, like asthma or bronchitis, COPD, anything like that, they kind of have a good grasp on their situation. But we always say call early. Just because we arrive on scene doesn't mean we have to take them to the hospital, but it's better to have someone there, especially if you're home alone and you start to feel like you're having an asthma attack or anything. They may have an inhaler that can provide that assistance, but if they're alone and that inhaler doesn't work and it progresses and they end up passing out and there's no one there to call 911, it'll end up having a drastic situation. Okay. So,
what about burns?
Burns are that's something that there's not a whole lot of care up here. They'd have to be transported down to Phoenix or up to Flagstaff for advanced level of care. So any type of burn can progress into an infection. So you don't want to ignore those types of things. Even if it's just a burn on the finger, you want to make sure that it's kept clean. And I would always recommend going to a hospital for that, because keeping it in a sterile environment is what's going to keep you from getting any kind of infection. So burns, you always want to cool the burn, keep it covered. You don't want to put anything on it. The old the wise tale, or cover it in butter, you're going to be fine. We don't recommend any of that. Just keep it cool. These are also things you'll learn in a basic first aid class on how to care for those things. So it's.
Okay, great. Well, we got to take our second break already. Sitting down with Rob Zazueta. He's the Public Information Officer for the Chino Valley Fire District. This is Countywide. We'll be back in a couple minutes.
How are your girls?
Stacy's good. Maggie, she's just gotten so angry. I don't know any of her new friends. And we found out she's gotten into drugs. Probably just a phase.
Most people don't know what to say about drugs.
Yeah, she'll outgrow it.
But we do. Visit us at drugfree.org.
As an American, it's hard to hear that we have a serious hunger issue in our country. And as a parent, it's even harder to hear that 1 in 5 of our kids struggles with hunger, especially when billions of pounds of good food are wasted every year. Feeding America is a nationwide network of food banks that helps provide billions of meals to families in need right in your community. Visit feedingamerica.org to support Feeding America and your local food bank. Together we can solve hunger. Together, we're Feeding America.
This is why you get by on 4 hours sleep. Why you took a second job. This is why you taught yourself how to fix the plumbing and spend hours juggling the bills. This is why you'll do whatever it takes to keep your home. And that is why we want to help. We are making home affordable, a free government resource that can make paying the mortgage easier. Now more options are available. Call 888-995-HOPE to talk one-on-one with a housing expert today.
Welcome back to Countywide. Kyle Benedict sitting down with Rob Zazueta, PIO for the Chino Valley Fire District, talking about some of the common emergency calls or injuries that we all might face. We also touched on the emergency medical system in general, how that all works. But for someone who might think they need 911 or need to be transported via ambulance or whatnot, if they're worried about or hesitant to call because they're afraid they might be charged or for something, or they might get a bill, a week later, what do you say to someone like that?
Well, the thing is understanding your government structure, and the fire districts and the fire departments up here, they're based off of taxes. So as you pay taxes to the counties, that's where we get our funding. When we respond to any kind of an emergency, even if it's a structure fire within our district, as long as you're within the district boundaries or anything, there's not going to be any additional bills on top of that. Patients that are transported to hospitals are transported through a private ambulance company, so they do have a bill structure, but when it comes to the fire departments that respond with those ambulance companies, we typically are able to provide initial care and continue that care in the ambulance all the way to the hospital, but the ambulance company will provide a bill, whereas the fire department does not, because we're covered through the taxes.
Yeah.
So
okay, so if you think you might need help or need to be transported somewhere, call.
Yeah, we get calls a lot for just public assist, getting snakes out of people's homes, changing batteries and smoke detectors, and a lot of times people think, oh, what do I have to pay for this? Yeah. And there's no payment for that. That's just another part of our service that we provide, that you pay for through your taxes. So.
Okay, great. Well, we're out of time. Thank you for coming in. Yeah, it was great. I think great information again for everyone to know, or if you're looking in the Chino Valley Fire District, if you're looking to kind of take a CPR class or learn about some of the things that you can do to help educate yourself in case some of these cases come up, you can call. The phone number is 928-636-2442, or you can just contact any of your local fire departments or districts. That's going to do it for today for Countywide. I'm Kyle Benedict, and we'll see you guys next time.